Hey everybody, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever it is that you are stumbling across this video. My name is Nick, and we want to welcome you to the online edition of The Gathering. The Gathering is sort of a unique community, a worshiping community that is a blended tradition. Some of us come from more formal liturgical backgrounds. Some of us come from very informal, not liturgical backgrounds. This group has partnered with the Northwest Washington Local Synod of the ELCA, the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America. And we are kind of a unique expression of church that brings people together from different backgrounds. And there may be some traditions and experiences that are new to you or unfamiliar to you, but they mean something of a great deal to someone else. And so we've been in this project learning from one another and really discovering some new and beautiful ways of worshiping that maybe we didn't know, kind of on both sides. And it's become a very beautiful expression of a church community together. Now, if you're interested in learning more about this community, you can go to our website at everettgathering.com. You can learn a little bit about our story there. You can find some of the personalities involved. And I would particularly point you to the core values section of the website, because that's what describes kind of the core values stuff that holds all these different people from different backgrounds together. So I'd encourage you to check that out if you have a moment. Now, mostly people want to know what's the kind of the vibe of a group like this as I'm getting to know them a little bit. So we usually kind of have boiled that down to two words, cautious and curious. We're certainly more than these things, but this might give you like an essence of who we are as a community. We're cautious in that many of us grew up in religious environments, and we find ourselves having experienced that religion has done some really beautiful things. Our religion can be something that is beautiful, including, inspiring. It can be a very wonderful thing, religion can be, and many of us have found personal significance and meaning in it in our own lives. But many of us have also seen that religion can be used in ways that isn't as inspiring, that's more toxic, exclusionary, or even harmful. And some of us personally, or people that we know and love and care about, have been significantly hurt by organized religion. And so we find ourselves as a group just a little bit cautious about organized religion. Now, I know this sounds weird because we are a church, and so by definition, we are an organized group of religious people. And we're not trying to pretend that we're something else, but we've just decided that if we are going to organize ourselves that way, that we want to be a little cautious about it because, well, we've seen how it can be abused. Now, the other word that we use to describe ourselves is the word curious, and by that, we simply mean to suggest that we don't have all the answers to everything. If you're looking for a group that has all the answers to all your questions, well, this probably won't be it. We're much better at asking questions than often coming up with definitive answers, because the truth is there's all sorts of things about God, about the Bible text, and about each other that we just don't know, and we still need to be thinking about and growing in. So as a group, we're always practicing what it means to be unusually curious. So we ask a lot of questions. We ask questions about the Bible text, we ask questions about God, and we ask questions about one another, because there's probably some things that I know that you could benefit from knowing, but there's certainly some things that you know that I could benefit from learning. So we want to be unusually curious about not just what it is that we don't know. We always want to be asking questions about that, but we also want to be asking a lot of questions and being curious about the things we think we already have an answer to, because that's also often where our blind spots are hiding. So if either of those two words kind of resonates with you, then I would suggest that this is a good community to continue to explore. Now, what we're going to be doing over the next few moments is sort of an online miniaturized version of what we do in person. In person, we just do things a little bit differently. We have more singing, or we've got some formal liturgical elements, we've got some informal elements, and we kind of mush them all together, and it makes for a pretty cool experience, actually. Here in the online space, we are just kind of miniaturized it down. We have one song. Our worship leader, Billy, he's going to come on the screen here in just a second, and he'll lead out in a song. You can sing along with it if you would like. That'd be fine. Or you can just let it play. And then after that, there'll be a little reflective video, which is this time the Lord's Prayer. And that's kind of a formal piece that we often include in our in-person gatherings. And then after that, I'm going to come on the screen and continue along with our series called Summer Playlist, where we're going and matching up some kind of current songs with the songbook of the Bible, which is Psalms, and we're kind of comparing and contrasting these things and having some fun in the summer with some music. So we'll take a look at that, and then finally at the end, we'll wrap up with the time of communion. And during communion, in our in-person gatherings, we always take communion together each week, and we provide everything that you need for that. But in the online space, we'll create a moment for you to do that, but you'll have to get a couple things on hand if you want to fully participate. You'll need something for the bread, which could be a little piece of bread, or it could be a little cracker as a substitute. That would work. And then you'll need something for the cup, which could be a little bit of juice, or maybe you got some wine left over from last night's dinner. You can pull that out, and then you'll have the two things you need on hand to participate in that if you would like to. And then finally, we'll wrap up everything with some announcements and send you on your way. All right, that's pretty much it. Why don't we get right to it? Billy's going to lead out in a song, and I'll see you back on the screen in just a few moments.
Beloved Father, please come down and meet us. We are waiting on your touch. Open up the heavens, shower down your presence. We respond to your great love. We won't be satisfied with anything ordinary. Satisfied at all. Open up the sky, fall down like rain. We don't want blessings, we want you. Open up the sky, fall down like fire. We don't want anything but you. Beloved Jesus, we just want to see you in the glory of your light. Earthly things don't matter, they just fade and shatter when we're touched by love divine. We won't be satisfied with anything ordinary. We won't be satisfied at all. Open up the sky, fall down like rain. We don't want blessings, we want you. Open up the sky, fall down like fire. And we don't want anything but you. Open up the sky, fall down like rain. We don't want blessings, we want you. Open up the sky, fall down like fire. We don't want anything but you. Anything but you, God. Here we go, let's go to the throne, place that we belong, right into his arms. Here we go, let's go to the throne, the place that we belong, right into his arms, yeah. Here we go, let's go to the throne, place that we belong, right into his arms. Yeah, here we go, let's go to the throne, the place that we belong, right into his arms. Here we go, let's go to the throne, a place that we belong, right into his arms. Oh, here we go, let's go to the throne, place that we belong, right to his arms. with anything ordinary. We won't be satisfied at all. See, we won't be satisfied. We won't be satisfied with anything ordinary. We won't be satisfied at all. Open up the sky, fall down like rain. We don't want blessings, we want you. Open up the sky, fall down like fire. We don't want anything but you. Open up the sky, fall down like rain. We don't want blessings, we want you. Open up the sky, fall down like fire. And we don't want anything but you. Oh, we won't be satisfied. We won't be satisfied. Oh, anything but you. Earthly things don't matter, they just fade and shatter when we're touched by love divine.
The Lord is my shepherd. I have all that I need. He lets me rest in green meadows. He leads me beside peaceful streams. He renews my strength. He guides me along right paths, bringing honor to his name. Even when I walk through the darkest valley, I will not be afraid, for you are close beside me. Your rod and your staff protect and comfort me. You prepare a feast for me in the presence of my enemies. You honor me by anointing my head with oil. My cup overflows with blessings. Surely your goodness and unfailing love will pursue me all of the days of my life, and I will live in the house of the Lord forever.
All right, that's Psalm 23. It's not our psalm for today, but a beautiful reading on its own, and appreciate that. We are in a series here that we are calling Summer Playlist. We are looking at songs, modern songs, and we are matching them up with the songbook of the Bible, which we call the Book of Psalms. Many of them are poems. Some of them we believe were actually musical in nature. It's often been used as the songbook of the Bible. And so we've kind of matching these up with modern songs and comparing and contrasting some themes, some thoughts, and some ideas. And it presents a bit of a challenge for those of us here online because streaming rights can be a bit of a problem. Now, our song for the day, which we have sung together in our in-person gathering, is the famous song by the Beatles, Here Comes the Sun. All right, we got a chance to sing that in person. I would love to play that video for you. You probably can kind of hear it in your head. I mean, it's a pretty famous song. But if you want to listen to it, we do have a link to the YouTube video embedded into the comments or the description of this video on YouTube. You can click on that right now and go and listen to it if you would like. Pause this video, go listen to that, and then come back to this one if you want to do that. I think I can get away with a little clip, though, in case you can't remember. You don't want to hear the whole song, but just a little clip will jog your memory. Here's a 10-second clip of Here Comes the Sun by the Beatles.
Here comes the sun, doo-doo-doo. Here comes the sun, and I say it's alright.
All right, that's all you get. Okay, I don't want to get in trouble. So that's all you get. Here comes the sun, I say, it's all right. Okay, you know that song, right? Here Comes the Song by the Beatles. That's a great song. I kind of feel like that should be the anthem of spring in Seattle, right? Because we just go through the big dark during the fall and winter, and finally the sun starts to come out, the clouds part a little bit, and sometimes you experience that, and the sun comes out, and all of a sudden I just feel happier. I'm like, whoa, I think I was living in a little depression there until the sun comes out, right? I just feel like sometimes the sun comes out, and I should just hear that as the soundtrack. Here comes the sun, the dark is ending. Now, we were at the beach this last week on a little family vacation, and the wildfire smoke had blown in, and saw the sun looking very different out over the Pacific Ocean with the smoke haze, right? And so later on in the week, some of that smoke dissipated, and we saw the sun kind of regularly again, and I thought, okay, that is much better. Here comes the sun when it doesn't look blood red as it does in this picture. Now, in our series here, as I said, we've been matching up some modern songs with some psalms in the Bible. We've also been putting together a playlist on Spotify and on Apple Music. So if you want to follow along with the songs that we've compiled already, you can do that. You can scan the QR code there. Pro hack here, if you take a screenshot of this on your phone and then you just touch the QR graphic, it'll open it up that way as well. So if you have Spotify or Apple Music, you can follow along with the playlist there as well. But our song for today is Here Comes the Sun by the Beatles. Now, this is one of their most beloved songs, and it was written by, does anybody know who? It was written by George Harrison. That's not normally who you think of as writing the Beatles songs. Usually John Lennon or McCartney has been writing them. But in this case, it was actually George Harrison. It was released on their classic 1960 album, maybe their most classic album, Abbey Road. And this song, Here Comes the Sun, has become one of the band's most enduring and optimistic songs. Now, it's an interesting story about how this song came about. The song came during one of the most difficult periods of the Beatles' history and of George Harrison's personal life. It was early 1969, and the Beatles were struggling with some kind of internal dissension among themselves and some disagreements. And their business affairs as a band had become very stressful after the death of their manager, Brian Epstein. And so now all of a sudden the business affairs are all kind of up in the air. That added to the stress. And Harrison had felt very frustrated by all these endless meetings he had to go to now that the business manager was gone, and kind of an uncertain future for the band itself. He'd also been dealing with some personal health issues and some personal legal issues. And so he just kind of had a lot going on. He'd been feeling pretty stressed out and down. Well, one day, the Beatles had another business meeting, but rather than go to it, George Harrison skipped out, and he went and visited his friend Eric Clapton, all right, another famous musician, went and visited him at his house in Surrey, which is southern London. And while he was walking through the garden on a beautiful spring morning at Eric Clapton's house, he found inspiration in the sunshine that he saw there sparkling in the garden after a long English winter. And he later recalled, it was just one of those days when spring comes and you can feel it. You ever had that where spring comes, where the sun comes out? It's not just that you see, it's like you feel it, right? It just brightens your mood. And so the contrast between the gloomy atmosphere surrounding the Beatles experience and then this bright weather, it really inspired the opening lyrics, Here Comes the Sun. And the sun became, of course, a metaphor for a hope of a better day after this difficult period. Better days were ahead. Now, that matches up really well with our psalm for the day, which is Psalm 85. Psalm 85 is actually the lectionary psalm for today, and it has a lot of similar optimism to it. Psalm 85, we don't know exactly who wrote it or when it was written, which frankly isn't all that odd for Psalms. Many of them we don't know who wrote them or why. We're not even sure what context they were used in. Sometimes there's some notes about how to use them, but some have said that it's the generic nature of many of these Psalms that makes them so useful for the church. Because they're not tied to specific events or people, we're able to then utilize them in many different events in the life of people today or in the life of the church. Now, many people think that this particular Psalm was likely written by Jewish exiles who had returned out of the exile and were hoping then for better days in the future. They were looking for that sunshine on the horizon. They were looking for spring, as it were. In fact, verse 12 even seems to kind of hint towards the idea of spring, right? The Lord will indeed give what is good, and our land will yield its harvest, all right? Harvest means the sun has come out, right? You don't get crops and harvest without the sun. So it's this hope that the sun is going to come out and eventually we are going to have a harvest. Now, Psalm 85 has three basic structural parts. And the first part, verses 1 through 3, of these three parts, they're kind of past, present, and future. All right, verses 1 through 3, the first part, looks back to the past, and it remembers when God has helped the people in the past. Then kind of the middle section of the psalm, verses 4 to 7, makes a plea in the present for God to help his people right now. And then verses 8 to 13, which is the end, imagines a day when the sun will fully come out, and it expresses this hope of what could be in the future. And that's really the part I want to look at today. It's really where the psalm is driving, and it's what matches most nicely with our song, Here Comes the Song. So let's read this here. Psalm 85, we'll start in verse 8. Let me hear what God the Lord will speak, for he will speak peace to his people, to his faithful, to those who turn to him in their hearts. Surely his salvation is at hand for those who fear him, that his glory may dwell in our land. Steadfast love and faithfulness, they will meet. Righteousness and peace will kiss each other. Faithfulness will spring up from the ground, and righteousness will look down from the sky. The Lord will give what is good, and our land will yield its increase. Righteousness will go before him, and will make a path for his steps. Okay, I like that. Now, that's kind of an interesting psalm here. The whole idea of the psalm is, what do you do when your world is dark and you're hoping for the sun to shine again, all right? Now, there's two ways to really read this psalm, all right? Now, well, there's a lot of ways to read a lot of different psalms, but there's two primary ways that people approach this psalm, all right? And two main takeaways that people have when they read it. Now, the first option is that this psalm is really about waiting on God to act. One way to read this psalm is with a view that hope is something that depends entirely on God, that the human response is simply to wait for it, to pray for it, to hope for it, but ultimately, hope is going to be found when God acts. If God doesn't act, nothing else changes, so you got to wait for it. Don't give up, right? It's an encouragement to hang in there. Don't give up. You got to wait for it. Now, this is a valid way to read the psalm, and it does feel true. There is a sense in which our hope waits for God to act, all right? I mean, we ask God to help because, well, there's many things that seem outside of our control. If I could fix them, I would fix them, right? But because I can't fix them, I go to God and ask for help because I'm waiting for him to act. I know that there's some things that only he can do. Some things that we hope God can do because we as humans have sort of proven incapable of doing it ourselves. There's some predicaments that we just kind of fall into over and over and over again and we can't remedy on our own and we need some help. Now, that certainly fits with Israelites who might be writing this poetry, right? I mean, the Hebrew people knew what it was like to be in need of help. They'd been in exile. Let's remember that, okay? And in exile, they're stuck. There's really nothing they can do to get out of it. And so they need God to help them. Now, it's interesting because some of them believe that they ended up in exile because God was punishing them. And we kind of see that earlier in the psalm, the part we didn't read up in the verses 1 through 3, and an idea that God is maybe angry at them and has been punishing them. And so some have this idea that God was punishing them for not following along in covenant with him. Others thought that, well, yes, we're being disciplined for not doing what we should have been doing, but it's not really God actively punishing us. It's God allowing us to experience the natural consequences of the actions that we have done. And in this way of reading it, God wasn't actively punishing them, but was passively allowing them to experience the consequences of their actions. Either way, hope of a better day for them depended on God bringing out the sun, all right? Either way, whether God was going to have to stop punishing them or stop allowing them to experience all these bad consequences, the ultimate deal here was that the people were saying, we blew it, And the only way back now is for God to act. I mean, we should repent and we should be contrite and we should ask God to act and then we should wait for it. But ultimately, God is going to have to be the one to bring back better times. Now, this is a valid way to read the psalm, that the people are praying and waiting for God to do the action. And so some would say that we see that really well in this verse, particularly in verse 10. In verse 10, we get these things called the four attributes or the four personifications. Some have called them a holy quartet. Others, there's one scholar that calls them the four horsemen of salvation, which is a fun title. You think of the four horsemen of Apocalypse and Revelation, right? Which I believe are like conquest, war, famine, and then I think death, all right? Different four here, a little cheerier four. They're kind of mentioned throughout the psalm in various places, but we see them clearly highlighted in verse 10, where it says, steadfast love and faithfulness will meet, righteousness and peace will kiss each other. These four attributes, covenant love, steadfast love, it's the Hebrew word chesed, and it just means this idea of faithfulness or steadfast love, a covenant loyalty. And then faithfulness is the Hebrew word amet, and it just means truth or fidelity, right? It's this idea I am who I say I am. And then righteousness is the Hebrew word tzedakah, and it means righteousness, but it's better translated really justice. It means a sense of justice, which is the idea that God is going to treat all equally. He's not going to treat the rich better than the poor. He's going to make sure to take care of those who don't have enough. He's not going to give all the advantage to those who do have enough. So it's this idea of justice. And then finally, peace, which is the Hebrew word shalom, which you might be familiar with, which means it means wholeness. It has some idea of a state of flourishing. And so in this verse, what many would say is that we discover here that all four of these attributes exist in God himself. It is in God that steadfast love and truth and fidelity meet. It is in God that justice or righteousness and peace come together and kiss. It is these four attributes of the divine that we find all together here in verse 10, and that's what we're waiting for. God is where all these attributes meet together, and we can read this psalm as saying that love, faithfulness, justice, and peace, they all meet in God, and because of this, only God can bring out the sun. So you gotta wait for it. That kind of synergy cannot fail. We must wait on this God who shows these attributes to act on our behalf. Now, it is a beautiful thought, and there is a lot of it that I think resonates with me as true. But it's not the only way to understand this psalm. Another way to read this psalm, the other kind of major way, is to read it as a meeting of God in partnership. Now, this way of reading the psalm acknowledges the first way, right, of God must act. But it recognizes that the poet seems to be doing something clever, particularly with these four attributes, because this meeting and kissing business seems to be bringing things together and partnering. Yeah, we take it for granted all these things exist in God, but the psalmist seems to be getting at this idea that these things are kind of unusually meeting together. So in reading the whole psalm this way, as a partnership between God and humans, people often point to verse 10 as a meeting between divine and human action or attributes. Read this way, steadfast love and righteousness or justice are divine attributes, and faithfulness and peace, truth and fidelity and peace, are human responses, results, or attributes as well. So steadfast love is what God brings. And to that, faithfulness is the human response. That what we're looking for is a day when God's steadfast love meets a faithfulness, a truth and fidelity from the humans, from humanity that will meet that kind of love. And that what we're hoping for is a justice or a righteousness that God, an attribute of God that he makes evident, that will kiss with this idea of peace in humanity. Now, justice, peace, steadfast love, faithfulness. Many read this psalm as a depiction of partnership of God and humans. And most who read the psalm this way point to the next two verses that further emphasize it. Verse 11, it says, faithfulness, remember that was that human quality, truth or fidelity, will spring up from the ground, and righteousness or justice, remember that was the divine attribute, will look down from the sky. Okay, here it seems like we're even showing this here, human and divine. The human looks up from the ground, the divine personified in justice here looks down from the sky. The Lord will give what is good. That's a reversal, right? We're still in the divine part. And then our land will yield its increase. And the Hebrew word here for land, it can mean earth, land, territory, the ground, the dirt itself. But it often, in a poetic sense, means the inhabitants of the land. It means the people of the land. And I think that's the poetic use that is being used here. That the Lord will give what is good, that is the divine action, and the people, the land, the people in it will produce a good crop, that is the human response. And so the picture here is a partnership between the divine and the human. God does his part and humans respond with theirs. And when that happens, what the psalmist is telling us is that the sun shines. I love this because waiting for this sun to shine is not a picture of escaping off to some far off place, right? Hoping that God will do all the work. It's not some ex machina idea where God will just come in at the last minute and fix everything. But it shows that the restoration of the earth is when heaven comes down to us and shows us the way, and we partner with God in what he is doing. And we have a role to play, a part to play, and certainly it is all initiated by God himself. Now, I like this way of reading the text because it doesn't leave humans in such a passive state, but invites us into part of the work of restoration. Now, the question of the psalm is, what do we do while we're waiting for the sun to shine? All right, that's all well and good, but what do we do in the meantime? And I think the psalm gives us a couple interesting clues. The first is to listen. Listen to what God has to say. That's how the section of this whole psalm starts. If you remember, verse 8 says, let me hear what God, the Lord, will speak. Let me hear what God has to say, for he will speak peace to his people, to his faithful, to those who turn to him in their hearts. The poet wants to listen to hear the potential of better days ahead, and it appears that the psalmist believes that there are those who are listening, those who have their hearts turned to him, who can hear what God is speaking. That God is already speaking peace to people around, and the question is, can you hear it? And maybe that is a great little thing for us to hold on to as we wait for the sun to shine for better days ahead. Let's be listening. We were at the beach this last week, and we had this great little house. It was on the Oregon coast on Tillamook Head there, and it was right on the edge of a cliff. I mean, it was just the waves about 250 feet down was the rocky beach, and the waves were crashing on the rocks 250 feet below, and we're up top. And I remember one evening we'd had a full day. We'd been all around on the beach everywhere. Came home, we're just kind of watching the Mariners play, which, we need some sun in that for the Mariners right now. But we're watching that, so that was depressing. And all of a sudden, I could, over the sound TV, I could hear something, kind of like a roar, you know? And I said, hey, do you guys hear that? And everybody's like, no. What are you talking about? I was like, hey, mute the TV for a minute. And we muted it, and we could kind of hear it. It sounded like the wind was blowing. And then we went outside, and it wasn't the wind blowing, it was those waves crashing on the shore. And once you'd recognized it, once you knew what you were listening for, you could hear it. It was beautiful. And I kind of wonder if we could just attune our ears to how God speaks of peace. That maybe a part of our work in waiting for the sun to shine is really keeping our ears attentive to hearing what God is saying. George Harrison could hear it. He heard it in the song. And the idea is to listen to the divine music all around you. And I hear it, don't you? When I'm listening for it, I hear it in the kind words that are said among us. I hear it in nature, in the wind, and in the waves. Can you hear the word of the Lord? Are you listening? Now, the second thing that the psalmist suggests is that we follow. The end of the psalm actually gives us a final action item, if you will. And you might miss it at first. In verse 12, it says, the Lord will give what is good, and our land will yield its increase. All right, that's good. And then verse 13, righteousness will go before him and will make a path for his steps. Now, it's that last verse there that's kind of tricky, because the question is, who is him? It says, righteousness will go before him and will make a path for his steps. So who's this him? Who is this his? Now, in the Hebrew, it's not very specific. It may be that it's talking about God. Maybe righteousness or justice is going before God and making a path for God's steps. But that seems unusual. I think it's likely the psalmist intends that righteousness or justice is God personified, and that this God is going before him, being the people of Israel, and making a path for their steps. In other words, God is showing the path for how to walk and live while we wait for the Son. In other words, the end of this whole psalm is really giving us an action item, which is to follow in the footsteps of where we see God leading. It's not just waiting around for God to finally do something, even though everything will depend on God's action at some point. But we have a role to play too. And it is where we see God leading out right now. Let's follow in his footsteps. It's what we do while we wait. We were at the beach and we were walking along the beach, and the beach has different types of sand. There's the sand near the water that's all wet and it's compacted hard. It's easy to walk down there, right? But you get away from the beach a little bit and the sand gets dry and it gets deeper and it's not all compact, so it's harder to walk through. And as we were walking along the beach, we kind of climbed up some sand dunes and it was difficult to walk. And my son was walking behind me and I was like, oh, this is hard, And he goes, oh yeah. He's like, but it's easier because you're standing in front of me and as you're walking, you're making these footprints and I'm just stepping in your footprints and it's making it easier to walk. And that's really the picture that the psalmist has here. That God is going before us. He's showing us the way. What does love look like? What does justice look like? And then we are to walk in those footsteps, following the way that he has shown us. What's our plan? To listen and to follow. To look for where God is walking and follow along in his path. And maybe if we do that, the sun will come out and it'll be all right. That's what I'm looking forward to. Aren't you? Well, we're going to go to communion today, and it's a reminder to us that ultimately the path to the sun coming out has already been walked. That Jesus walked that path in front of us, and he showed us the way of love and faithfulness and justice, righteousness, and peace. And he became one of us. He gave his own life. He allowed all the evil and selfishness and everything we sown into the world to rebound onto him. He absorbed it and it killed him, but he triumphed over it with new life. Because love defeats all the ways of evil in the world. And at the cross, we remember that we're not just thankful for the cross, but we're invited to participate in that way of love, to follow in those footsteps. And we remember that as we go to communion today. So we're going to go to communion now. And as we do that, a little video will play. And if you've got those items, you can have them ready and you can take communion with us. But before we do that, let me pray for us. God, thank you so much that you love us, that you care for us. And God, we trust that as difficult as life can look around us, we trust that the Son is coming, that your Son will return, and that you will restore this world. Thank you for inviting us to be a part of that. Thank you that you don't just fix it all for us, but allow us to participate in the restoration of this world. Help us to be ever vigilant and listen to where you're speaking peace. And won't you help us to follow along in your path of justice and righteousness. We see your example at the cross, Jesus. We are thankful for it, and we pledge ourselves again to following in your way. It's in the name of Jesus we pray. Amen. All right, let's go to communion, and I'll see you afterwards for some announcements. All right, got a couple announcements for you as we wrap up here today. First of all, we do meet in person every Sunday at 10 a.m. We meet at the Zion Church property. They graciously rent their facility to the gathering community, and it's a really easy to access us there. We meet right off the freeway south of downtown Everett. If you're coming along I-5, it's easy to get off at the 41st Street exit, and it's a quick jaunt right off of there to the property. We invite you to come and be with us Sundays at 10 a.m. The real treasure of this group is the people, and if you have an opportunity to meet with us in person, we'd love for you to do that. If you want to follow along with us on the socials, we are on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. You can find us at The Gathering Everett, and we post information and videos and stuff like that on there if you want to stay up to date with things that are happening. If you're not on social media, you can catch us in your email inbox. If you're not already receiving our newsletter, which comes out fairly regularly, you can message us on Facebook with your name and your email address, or you can drop me a line. My email is on the screen there, and tell me you want to be added to the list, and I would be happy to do that. Our seniors group is coming up, not this week, but next week, Wednesday the 19th. They meet at 11:30 a.m. for a potluck time together downstairs. And they also have a special guest this week, or this month. Someone from the Snohomish County Emergency Management Service is coming to talk about being prepared for emergencies in our area, and should be a very informative time. So if you want to join them in that, you're welcome to do that. And then finally, we have a park day coming up August 30th. That's the final Sunday in August. We're going to be meeting at Forest Park, which is right next to the church, actually. You can walk from the property there into the park. And we're going to be meeting at 11 a.m. We're going to be grilling some hot dogs and hamburgers. We'll have the buns for it, all the fixings. We'll have drinks. All you need to bring, if you'd like to, is maybe a camping chair. There's some chairs there, but you might want to bring another one. There's also, if you want to bring a side dish, maybe some potato salad, a dessert, some chips, whatever else, you can do that. There is a kids' playground there. There's an open field, so if you have some yard games you want to bring, you can do that. There's a splash pad. We'll be there from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. just hanging out, having fun together, and you are invited to that. Finally, if you'd like to donate, you can do that on our website. You can go to everettgathering.com/donate, make a one-time gift or a recurring gift, and help support the various ministries that this community is a part of. We have a big food bank. We have a community garden that helps provide fresh produce to that food bank. We have a community meal that's happening every week, helping feed people, not just taking food home, but giving them a hot meal right there. We have all sorts of food ministry stuff and all sorts of clothing drives and things that are happening all the time. And all that happens because of your generous support. So if you want to make a donation, you're welcome to do that as well. Okay, that's pretty much it. Next week, we got a kind of a fun song. It's a rock and roll song. It's pretty loud. And so you're going to want to tune in for that. It's going to be funny because it's our what do you call it, organ weekend. So we play our pipe organ and kind of do more traditional things, and then we're gonna have this hard rock song right in the middle of it. So that's gonna be kind of fun. All right, that's pretty much it for this week. Hope to see you next week, and we'll be right here. Hopefully you will be too. We'll talk to you then. Bye.